All right, welcome. So, sitting in silence. This video is all about the power of silence, the power of stillness, and why sitting in silence and sitting in stillness and allowing your brain to return back to process and to regulate itself within that time spent just relaxing, resting, and sitting in silence. And relaxing and resting is not stimulating yourself with your phone and other dopaminergic activities. It is not playing video games. It is none of this. It is truly just sitting there and allowing yourself to process and regulate all of the systems within the brain and body back to a normal baseline, back to homeostasis, right? And so for any of you guys who are interested in increasing the amount of progress that you can make by fixing your daily routine, if you guys are interested in learning more about self-improvement as a whole, you can go and click that first link in the description in my community where I teach self-improvement to athletes and entrepreneurs and teach them how to implement and use that in order to make the most potential progress. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and click that first link in the description. And then if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, you can check out that second link in the description, or you can DM me on Instagram. But without further ado, I'm going to tell you guys exactly how I found my direction, exactly how I began my journey. So back in 2021, 2022, early 2022, I began having the desire to change my life, I was trying to become a pro athlete at this time. I was trying to become a pro snowboarder at this time. I was trying to start a business as well. And I had found content on dopamine detoxing. I had found content on productivity and self-improvement. And I had started implementing some of these things. But it was very, very hard. I found myself continuously returning back to this, the doom scrolling, as you could call it. And I kept finding myself returning back to just watching content all day instead of actually working and putting in the effort. But the one thing that actually allowed me to break through, the one thing that actually allowed me to fully transform, was what I'm about to tell you guys right now. So I ended up watching a YouTube video, and the video was basically explaining how the best way to return or regulate your attention, right? The best way to actually undo the overstimulation is actually just to sit in silence and sit and do nothing and literally just stare at a wall, basically. Sit and do nothing and not think, right? I mean, obviously, if you need to think, you need to think, but for the most part, trying to minimize thoughts, right? And ideally not think, right? Not do anything, just be, right? Just sit there in silence and be. And the funny thing is, this was very hard at first, very difficult at first, to just sit and do nothing, right? In school, I stopped using my phone when I would get bored. Every time I'd catch myself reaching for my phone because I was bored, I'd put it right back down, right? And I would, while all of my friends were over there stimulating themselves, I would just stare at the wall. Usually that would end up leading me to doing more of my work. It also led me to being one of the most productive in the classroom. And so there were multiple occasions where I was done with the work while most everybody else was just getting started. And this left me with a lot of time to just sit there and do exactly what I'm talking about. Just sit in silence and be. And over time, this allowed me to realize what the things were that were holding me back, what the things that I was addicted to were, what the things that I really wanted were, and then I started to also figure out how to get there, right? And as that progressed naturally, I started to actually take the actions, right? And actually move in that direction. And now I can't imagine going backwards, right? I just want to keep moving forwards. And so this time just spent in silence, this time just spent coming back to myself, allowed me to realize who I really was, allowed me to realize what the real purpose of my life was and why I was even doing any of this stuff in the first place, how I could implement it. It also created a newfound desire to do things, to actually like go out and do things and put in effort for things, to go and play sports, to go and do some work, build a business, right? It gave me that desire back, that craving back that I had lost from all of these addictions, right? Social media, right? And any other forms of addiction, right? It's all the same thing. But it allowed me to actually feel that desire for life again, because I had allowed myself to regulate the addictions, regulate my mind, return back to a state of homeostasis, which allowed me the chance to choose what to do next. Whereas before, I didn't have much of a choice because I didn't have a means of overcoming my mind, overcoming my brain, as well as the state of dread, right? In the last video, I called it the abyss, but this abyss where you are just, it is almost painful just to be without stimulation. And within this state, you basically can't do anything but continue to stimulate yourself, because it is the only thing that gives you a sense of basic enjoyment, right? Basic pleasure. What feels normal to me now is what you might consider pleasure. And that's hard to think about, hard to conceptualize and believe, but if you were in my position, you would understand. If you had been in both positions, right? If you had been where you are right now and then where you will be after you implement this video, when you are in a new position, right? When you are transformed, when you are freed from this and you look back and you compare now to then, right? The new version of you to the old version of you, you will see that the amount of pleasure that you have within normal life is actually a little bit more than the pleasure you got from all of the addictions, all of those addictive vices. So the power of silence. What is the power of silence? So the first thing is calming and regulating the brain, right? It allows the brain to calm down, right? We are constantly thinking, we are constantly contemplating, these thoughts are just playing over and over and over again in a loop. What it does is it allows you to regulate that. It allows you to relax. It allows you to calm the mind back down, right? The mind is always active. Giving it a moment to calm down, to relax, and then to regulate, and also process all of that information that you're taking in, process all of these thoughts, process all of these experiences. It allows you the chance to process it, and then it clears all of the clutter of the mind. It allows you to bring yourself back to a state of center, a state of oneness, right? And it allows you to then process everything. The next thing is self-discovery. When you sit in silence, when there is nothing else but yourself, you will find and determine who you really are, why you're here, what you're doing here, and you will also painfully see the mistakes that you're making, right? How far you are from the man that you're meant to be, or woman. The next thing is, if you spend long enough in this state, you will eventually find your purpose. You will eventually determine what your purpose is, why you are here, what you are doing here, right? And once you have found your true purpose, it is very, very hard to let it go, right? It's very, very hard to just forget about it. Once you've seen it once, it is almost impossible to let it go. It is almost impossible to stop focusing on it, stop concentrating on it, stop working towards it. It's all you want, it's all you desire, it's all you crave, it's all you think about. Because that is your true reason for living. That is all of the systems within your body that keep you alive. They're keeping you alive to do this thing, right? And so once you have actually determined what it is, all of the survival mechanisms in your body that are keeping you and holding you into addiction will actually now start to keep you focused on working towards purpose. Because addiction is simply just the distraction for the fact that we are not living in our fullest purpose. And because of that, we need these distractions, right? When we are not living in our purpose, it is so painful that we need these distractions, right? We need to numb ourselves in order to even move forward, because our purpose is the thing that drives us, right? It is the thing that motivates us. It is the thing that we are here for. And so therefore it is the itch that you have, right? That craving that you have to go and do something, to achieve something. It comes from your purpose. It comes from your reason for being, your reason for living, what it is you are actually trying to bring to this world. And then, so the last thing is it removes the veil. And what do I mean by this, right? It removes the cloud and the fog that is currently in front of you, that is currently within your brain, that is currently within your reality that you're experiencing as the distraction, as the absence of focus, as the absence of concentration, as the absence of clarity. The veil is a collection of unprocessed information from constantly overstimulating ourselves with content, right? It is the result of negative food, shitty food, junk food, right? And it is the result of taking too many drugs and damaging the mind, right? And all this that damage does is it basically creates a cloud, it creates a fog, it creates a lack of clarity to who you truly are, what you truly need to be doing, right? And this veil, this state of confusion, of not knowing what is going on and who you really are, this veil can be removed by simply sitting in the shit long enough, right? Sitting in all of the bullshit floating around in your mind, right? Sitting in it long enough to eventually dissolve it and break it all down. I have a course within Self-Improvement Synthesized on mastering the moment, and it teaches you exactly how to break down all of these thoughts and dissolve all of these thoughts. But the basic concept that I can give you right now is simply just being aware of it, right? Sitting in awareness of it is what allows you to break it down and dissolve it, right? And you don't need to go join Self-Improvement Synthesized just for that course, right? Obviously, it's going to help a lot, but the thing you actually need to do, and literally the entire course is just teaching you to sit in silence and focus and give attention to the mind, right? Give your attention to the mind, observe the mind, and then allow it all to be broken down and dissolved. Observe yourself and allow all of these negative egos to be transformed, right? So why it's so important, why silence is so important is because there's a few reasons, right? The first one that I have is overstimulation. This state of overstimulation makes it so hard and so confusing to even just be, to live, right? If you were to try and do some work, right, it is very difficult and very hard and confusing because there's 1,000 different ways to do it. And you've heard about all of them because you've been on TikTok or you've been on YouTube, right? And so you don't know what to do, but also just the overstimulation itself makes it very hard to work, makes it very hard to be, makes it very hard to breathe even, like just relax and breathe, right? This overstimulation has the mind constantly running, constantly racing, and it cannot process any of this information because it's constantly being flooded with more. So the next thing is decision fatigue. As I mentioned before, there are 1,000 different ways to do one thing. And so because you have all of these options floating around in your head, you can't clearly decide what to do, and you're constantly trying to figure it out. You're constantly trying to determine what the best course of action is instead of just taking a step, right? Just take one step and then figure it out, right? Take one step, figure out your next one. Then from there, your next one. Then from there, the next one, right? You don't have to figure out the entire plan, the entire process now. You just need to move forward. But this decision fatigue makes it impossible. And so sitting in silence actually allows us to break it down, allows us to rest and relax the mind and process that information, right? And it allows us to dissolve all of the alternatives, right? All of the extra options that we feel like we have. And instead it leaves us with just the one purpose, the one reason, the one why, and the one process, right? The one activity, the one thing that needs to be done. And there may be multiple things that need to be done in the long term, but in this moment, There's only really one thing to focus on, right? And you will determine that by spending enough time in silence and spending enough time in solitude and an observation of yourself. The other thing is avoidance. We spend a lot of our time in avoidance of the real activity, the real habit, the real work. And so we need to actually stop avoiding. We need to stop distracting ourselves with these other activities, these other habits, and actually just focus right here, right now on what we're doing right here and right now, right? And so this constant avoidance of the work that needs to be done, it can be broken by forcing yourself to sit with it, forcing yourself to face it, right? And so the next thing is, as you spend enough time with yourself, you can actually begin to dig down deep into the root causes of your issues, the root causes of all of your problems, right? And if you do spend enough time, you'll realize that pretty much all of your problems stem from you, stem from who you are inside, right? And so if you spend enough time sitting with yourself, if you spend enough time in silence, eventually you will bring yourself into this internal version of your existence, your being, right? The internal world within you. And you will be able to see, what will be revealed to you is all of the parts of yourself that's holding you back. All of the parts of yourself that keep stopping you from moving forward, from making progress, right? And you can see the real root causes of all of your issues. You can stop blaming outside scenarios and outside circumstances. You can start to actually realize that it is you, that you need to transform. And so therefore, you will actually begin to do so. Right? You can find the real root causes, the real reasons why you are stuck, right? It could be something else as well. It doesn't have to be internal, right? But you will be able to see it so clearly that you can actually act upon it because you have sat with it long enough. And then the last thing that I have is it forces you to face yourself. It forces you to face who you are. It forces you to face your mind, it forces you to face your ego. It forces you to face your own deficiencies, right? Your own internal battles, your own internal demons. And it forces you to be with yourself. It forces you to actually sit in that pain, right? That discomfort of being just with you, right? If you don't like who you are and where you're at right now, and it's painful to sit with yourself, face that, right? Face that pain. Face who you really are. Literally, there were times when I was coming up, right? Times on my journey where I would just sit and stare at a mirror. Not for too long, right? 10 minutes maybe. You just sit there and stare and you look and you're like, who are you? Why are you, right? How have you become this way? Is there really even anything wrong with you, right? See these things, face these things, right? Really truly see, process, and comprehend these things. Comprehend who you are. Comprehend the parts of yourself you really don't like, right? And find ways to overcome them. Find ways to change them. Find ways to transform yourself, right? If you sit with yourself long enough, it forces you to actually become the person you want to be. You can't go and live it through other people by going on social media. You have to become it. You have to do it yourself. And so that's painful at first. That's why most people won't do it. It's painful at first. But it is how you actually transform and become the version of you that you dream to be, right? All of these successful people, they became successful not because of their circumstances, not because they're just magical and special and it's just who they are, right? It is because they have faced who they were, decided it wasn't good enough, and overcame it and transformed themselves into something better, something they viewed as actually worthy, right? And so that is all I have for you guys. Okay? If you guys enjoyed this content and you would like more and you'd like to work with me personally, go ahead and check out those links in the description, right? Even just shoot me a DM on Instagram if you have any questions or you want to just talk, right? I'm always open to just having conversations, right? You don't need to pay me in order for me to give you advice, right? So if you'd like to DM me on Instagram to talk about the coaching program or just ask some questions, go right ahead. If you're interested in self-improvement synthesized, go click that first link in the description. I have loads and loads of sauce for you guys inside of that community, right? And we do multiple calls a week, right? Multiple weekly calls where you guys can come on and just get personal advice from me, personal coaching from me. And yeah, so if you guys are interested in more self-improvement content, more information, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Other than that, I'm out of here. Peace.